The Honest Truth, Chapter 5.5. Box of old pictures, little notes with counted words, paper memories. Jess lay on her bed and looked through the shoebox of memories she kept on the top shelf of her closet. They were mostly pictures of her and Mark, pictures they had taken together with his old camera. There were the notes, too, the notes they'd passed back and forth in school since kindergarten. The notes he had left behind the brick under her window. As she looked through them, she rubbed at her cheeks and chin from time to time so that her tears wouldn't fall and stain the pictures or blur the words. There they were, on her first day of kindergarten, backpack almost bigger than her body. They were in Mark's room. He was lying in bed. He had to start kindergarten at home with his mom. He had been too sick to go to school for most of that year. But they'd still celebrated their first day together, and he had still wanted a picture of the first day, like all the other kids got. A picture of them at the water slides, the summer after first grade. He'd been doing great then. They thought he might even be better for good. He'd gone to school for the whole year. His smile, with their skinny arms around each other's shoulders, was big and healthy, just like hers. She liked that their skin looked different, his white, hers brown. But their smiles looked the same, just happy kids. Third grade. A party at school to welcome him back. He had gotten sick again and had to miss 3 months. The whole class had made him cards. Mrs. Wilson had them all write him a haiku because Mark loved haiku so much. In the picture, he looked tired, but happy. All the other kids were crowded around him. He had on a baseball hat that was way too big for his head. He was the only kid allowed to wear a hat in school. Fourth grade, posing in their soccer uniforms before their first game. They both looked so excited. It had been Mark's best year. He hadn't been sick at all. It was almost like the whole thing had just been some awful 4-year nightmare they had left behind. There was a note, too, that he'd left in their secret spot at the beginning of that year. Doc said tests looked good, his messy handwriting said. Pizza feast to celebrate. Do you want to come? Jess sniffed and looked back and forth between the picture and the note. Next was a postcard, one he had given her the summer before 5th grade. Mark had gotten so into mountain climbing that summer. His grandpa had been a big-time climber, and he'd given Mark a book about it. Mark had read it, over and over. He had learned everything he could on the subject. The mountain climbing became his secret passion. He didn't tell his parents. They were too overprotective, he said. He didn't tell other kids because they wouldn't get it. He was too small, too sickly to climb mountains. But he told Jess. He told Jess everything. The picture on the postcard was of a mountain, blue and rocky and capped with a white cone of snow. It looked about 100 miles high. Under the picture, in fancy purple words, it said Mount Rainier. Jess turned the card over to read the one word Mark had written on the back. Someday. The last note, other than the one still stuffed in her pocket, was from only a few weeks before. It was short and sloppy. Absent tomorrow. Bad headaches are back again. Doctor wants more tests. She should have known. Really, she had known. She just wouldn't admit it. Her eyes burned to a blur she couldn't blink away, but she didn't need to look at the pictures to see Mark's face. She didn't need to read the notes to hear his voice. She knew, with terrible sureness, what he was doing. But there's lots of kinds of terrible in the world. What he was planning to do was only one kind, and maybe not the worst. She hated doctors sometimes. She had waited at Mark's that morning, waited with his parents for the next call, which they were sure would be the police saying that they'd found Mark at the restaurant and that he'd be home soon. She'd be so relieved. But then the phone call had come. Mark's mom took the call and then told them both about how the police had found nothing but an empty office and some ladies working in the kitchen. Yes, they had seen Mark, but they didn't know where he had gone. There were bloody paper towels in the bathroom. Mark's dad had shaken his head and closed his eyes. It didn't make sense. Mark was sick, but not the kind of sick that makes you bleed. His parents had looked so lost and confused and sad. Where could he be, they kept asking. Jess had sat and bitten down on everything she knew. She had clenched her jaw to hold it all inside her mouth. Mark had known she would figure it out. He trusted her. It was in her hands. Should she bring him back and save him? Or save him and let him go? It wasn't fair to be so sad and so confused at the same time. She had too much to decide and too much to feel. She was lost. What should a friend do? How to help when helping and hurting are the same.